Today we talk about what it means to be a cycle breaker, what it means to end generational trauma, what it means to stop all of the things that are dysfunctional in your family bloodline. Welcome to the R.Y.S.E Movement Podcast, a place where men just like you learn to raise your standards everywhere. Welcome to another episode of the R.Y.S.E Movement Podcast. I'm Dave, and in this one, like I said earlier, we're diving headfirst into what it means to be a cycle breaker. So I'm the cycle breaker of my family. I'm the black sheep. I'm the weird one. I'm the one that says enough is enough. The first thing that I want to start off with talking about today, because being a cycle breaker is something that came up in my last counseling session last week, and it's something that has been on the forefront of my mind ever since. What it means to be a cycle breaker is the one who steps up into the family and says enough. The one who takes responsibility, bears the burden of the generational trauma of whatever dysfunction that happens inside of the family on their shoulders and says, it ends with me. It ends right fucking here. It ends right now. And I'm going to be the one to take this burden, put it on my shoulders, much like the R.Y.S.E logo with Atlas, with the world on his shoulders, and say, this is mine. I carry this. And it stops here. What that means to me, to be the cycle breaker, to end generational trauma, is so empowering, and it is such a powerful mission for myself. It is what my purpose is built around, because I've seen so much pain inside of my family, inside of my upbringing. And I say enough. There is no more that happens under my watch. There is no more that happens in my bloodline. There is no more pain. There is no more turmoil, abuse, violence, alcoholism, sexual abuse. Like, there's none. It stops. And what that means to me is it's empowering. Is my mission inside of my family to make sure that I take care of everything, that the buck stops with me. Even those that are older than me, that came before me in my family, that have trauma, that have pain, that have abuse, violence, alcoholism, addiction, any of these sorts of things, obesity. These things get healed through me, through the epigenetics of our family bloodline, because I choose to look at it. Remember, one of my favorite sayings is, that which you seek the most is where you least want to look. I'm the one who is looking at all of these things. And I'm not saying it from an egoic perspective and say, wow, look how awesome I am. No, I'm the one who's saying, I am responsible for this. Because I can't see my family go through the things that they've gone through, be traumatized, be victimized, be oppressed, get, beaten and raped and all these sorts of things. No more. It stops. It is extremely hard to look at, because you're looking at some of the most disgusting, abhorrent, just subhuman behaviors that are around. And it's even hard for me to say now, because I'm still reliving a lot of these things. I'm still going through a lot of these things and journaling and meditating upon. It lights such a fire inside of me to continue moving forward, to continue doing what I do with the R.Y.S.E movement, to continue raising my daughters, and to have a beautiful relationship and eventual marriage with Rachel. Like, it fuels everything that I do. My whole purpose statement is based around ending generational trauma worldwide. That's what I have to do. I must do it. And it is a big goal. There's a lot of people and a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of abhorrent, absolute disgusting things that happen inside of families, inside of the world. And it's a big enough mission that it has so much meaning inside of it. It has so much purpose inside of it. It is the most meaningful thing that I think that I can help tackle. I'm not going to be able to do it myself. And that's what the R.Y.S.E movement is all about. Raise your standards everywhere. It's to be able to make sure that you raising your standards in your relationship, in your life, in your finances, your business, your kids, your health, your wellness, all these sorts of things, is so that you can be a man of high standards and be a beacon to the rest of the men out there in the world to start doing the exact same, to create ripples worldwide, so that we can make sure that men are strong, men are vulnerable, men are courageous, men are brave, men have integrity inside of themselves. They speak truth, they act in truth. That is what they are here for. And everyone else can see them as that beacon, as that flashing symbol for hope, for truth, for integrity, and emulate that. Emulate it in their own lives, so that way we can keep moving this worldwide. Sure, we're only small now. We're only just getting fucking started. It is so important to step up and to be the cycle breaker in your family, because if you don't do it, then who? If not now, then when? Are you going to wait? Are you going to let your kids go through this? Are you going to pass the buck to them so that they have to be the cycle breaker? So they have to be the black sheep of the family? So they have to voluntarily step into this? Or are you going to be the man of the family throughout your whole bloodline, throughout your epigenetics, and take responsibility and say, enough. I heal everything now. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today in terms of cycle breaking are relationships, taking responsibility, drinking, drugs, any kind of other addiction, obesity, morality, values, beliefs and standards, communication, finances. And the major one is, I wish I had someone like me growing up. I would have given anything to have a mentor, an older brother, an uncle, just some kind of mentor like me in my life. I got told this by a therapist a long time ago. The current version of you that has done all the work, that has healed their traumas, looked at the things that they don't want to look at, and is on the path of becoming a better person, a more compassionate, empathetic, kind, caring, strong, high standards man, you would have felt comfortable with him as a child. All of this work that I do and that we do as men, when we look at our traumas, when we do all these things, when we create mindfulness, we do breath work, we do, whatever we do, that is inner child work. And it is to be able to make sure that that little boy that's inside of us all, he is cared for and he is protected. Because I know when I was a kid, I wasn't. Sure, I had a roof over my head. I was very blessed. I was very privileged to have all the things that I had. However, like I said a couple of times now, there was violence, there was abuse, there was pain, alcoholism, addiction, obesity. There were some really, really fucked up things that happened. And like I said, it's not the best, it's not the worst, it's my childhood, it's my upbringing, it's what made me me. It's what gave me the drive to actually hate myself enough to want to change, to the point where now whenever I do transformations, whenever I go inward to be able to look at the darkness, to be able to, shed light on the darkness and do shadow work and all these things, it's because I love myself. That transformation inside of myself is what I hope to be able to ripple out towards my family, towards my friends, my clients, and anyone else that comes in contact with me, to learn that, yeah, there's things inside of you that you might not enjoy. There's things inside of you might want to run away from and not shine light on. But if you choose to, and you choose to do it voluntarily, that's the main thing. Otherwise, you can develop PTSD and stuff like that if you're involuntary subjected to your traumas and to your pains. Make sure that you do it voluntarily. I'm working with someone at the moment who's going through a really rough time because all of a sudden it's happened involuntarily. They've had some dreams pop up of their abuse of their childhood, and it's quite rough. It's it's very, very heartfelt, very touching, just painful stuff. That got really real for me just then. Do it because you love yourself. Don't do it because you hate yourself. I remember back in 2018, 2019, my best friend's wife, she said to me, why are you putting yourself through all of these things? Why are you going consistently to, do all what you do? And I remember saying in all caps in a text message, because I hate myself. And really, that's where all of my transformational work, where all my ending generational trauma and breaking cycles and stuff came from, because I fucking hated who I was. I've said a few times now, and if you go back to episode 2, if you haven't listened to it already, I was a giant piece of shit. I fucking hated who I was. I hated how I made people feel. I hated how I manipulated people, but that's all I knew, because that's what I saw, and I saw emulated from my dad, and he was my role model. So I just became a split image of him. I'm very thankful that through meditation, therapy, counseling, plant medicine, breath work, all these things, all the different modalities that I've done, I've learnt to heal. I've learnt that what I did was just terrible, abhorrent, just disgusting. And it's helped me develop empathy and compassion for other people, because I never had that. I never had empathy and compassion for myself. I could never look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you. I love you, Dave. Like, you're doing well. It's okay. You have worth. You have value. Like, you're cool. You got this. I could never say that to myself because I fucking hated who I was. And I know there's a lot of blokes out there that are listening to this that are the exact same. You fucking hate everything about you. You hate the way that you look. You hate the way that you feel. You hate the way that you think. Like, you just hate all of it. And it's almost like disgusting for you to think of the type of person you are. I know this because I've been there too. And I've helped many, many men go through this and get to a place where if they're not at a place where they can love themselves, they're at a place of peace and contentment because they're able to continue moving forward from a place of, I guess, love for themselves, even if they're still working on getting to that place, but changing the focus from hating everything about yourself and about who you are and what you do and what you feel and what you think to be able to go, okay, I'm doing this to become the man that I want to become because I want to love myself. It's okay to love myself. It's okay for me to be worthy. It's okay for me to have love from other people and have, affection and admiration and to be wanted, to be needed, to be desired from other people. That's okay. It's really important that you understand that. And if that's one of the things that you need to do as a cycle breaker to be able to accept love and worth from other people just because you are you, then I take my hat off to you because it's a fucking big ask. So, my purpose for being a cycle breaker, ending generational trauma, comes down to one of my favorite bands in the world, Parkway Drive. They had a song come out on their Ire album in 2015 called Vice Grip. And I still can't listen to that song without tears coming to my eyes just because of how fucking meaningful those lyrics are to the chorus. I actually got it tattooed here a couple of weeks ago. Hope for the hopeless, a light in the darkness. That's why I do what I do. No matter how bad things have gotten, and like I've said before, things have gotten suicidal, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, all these sorts of things. Things have gotten pretty dark for me. There was always a glimmer of hope in hindsight. It might have felt terrible, rock bottom, like there's no way out, especially when I was standing on that chair tying my noose. But there was always a glimmer of hope. Always. And if I can always hold hope, even if I've been down to the belly of the beast and I've been through my own hell and come out the other side, I can always hold hope. Always. I can always attempt to be the light in the darkness. No matter how dark it is outside, no matter how dark you have, no matter the darkness inside of your soul, I can always shine a light on that. That's what I pride myself on. I might be naively optimistic. I like to think that I see things pretty balanced. I know the atrocities in the world. I know the pain. I know the darkness. I know the just absolute disgusting things that are out there. I know the malevolence, the true just disgusting evil that's out there in the world. However, I have such a light inside of me and I can shine it on anyone. No matter how evil, no matter how dark, how malevolent, how much pain you've inflicted on other people, I can show you the light inside of yourself. It's there. It's there, and it might only be a couple of embers, but we can get that thing to ignite. We can turn that light so bright, so beautiful, and give you so much meaning and purpose inside of your life if you choose to do the work. It's not something that I can do for you. This is something that you have to be willing to voluntarily step into and say, yeah, I choose this. This is my burden to bear. This is my responsibility, and it ends with me. So empowering. So, relationships. None of my parents' generation of my uncles and aunts are still married. None of them. They've all had failed marriages. They've all never remarried, except for my dad. Except he went the opposite way. Instead of healing and going through and looking at his traumas and stuff like that, he went off to get married another 2 times after him and my mum divorced. He went the opposite way because, much like me in my early 20s, I couldn't stand to be alone. I always had to have someone around, someone to manipulate, someone to make me feel better about myself by putting them down. That's where I learned it from him. My mum, I don't even think she's been on a date in the last 20 years that she's been single. My uncles, all exactly the same. Lots of failed relationships and lots of pain. Just so much pain. My grandmother and Pop, they were together until he died. But even then, they had a few times where they split, especially when Pop got sick, especially when he was going through his cancer treatment. He ended up leaving her when he was in remission for the first time. And this was when I think he was like 75 or something like that. No successful relationships around me in that generation. So those who I role modeled from, all failures in relationships. So I made it a strong vow. When I find my queen, I will do anything if she will do anything. I will take responsibility for my side of the relationship, and I will learn to communicate as effective as possible to be able to say what my needs are, what my hopes and dreams are, what if there's any disagreements, to negotiate fairly. That's a vow that I made to myself. It's a vow that I make to Rach every single day when I choose her. Because I make sure that inside of this household, she's the one. I don't believe in the one for everyone, but she's the one for me. She's my absolute queen. I do anything and everything for her because she's such an amazing woman. I said enough when it came to relationships because I'd seen so many failures around me. So much pain, so much heartache, just because they couldn't communicate, they couldn't be vulnerable, they couldn't express, they couldn't compromise and negotiate, and they couldn't hold it together. Another big one for my family is drinking. My Pop was a massive alcoholic to the point where on weekends, especially if people were around, he'd drink a case of beer easily. One of the most famous quotes from my Pop was, "Dave, there's only two types of beer, good beer and better beer." And this is a man who used to pride himself on drinking half a carton a day of Powers Gold. He would crack his first beer sometimes, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. That man taught his sons, my uncles, how to drink beer. Taught them how to be alcoholics. Also taught them how to be abusive. I had a really bad drinking problem when I was 17, 18, 19, to the point where one night where we were having beers at my friend Tim's place, we all woke up the next morning and we all had really, really painful lungs and way too hungover and all the rest of it. And we all said, enough. We're not doing this anymore. And so we all pretty much quit drinking cold turkey there and then, which was really hard for me because I was getting drunk 4 to 5 times a week. It'd be uni night on Tuesday night at the old Prince Albert at the casino, $2 daiquiris, and then Thursday night, ladies night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday at Fisho's. That was fun. But I had a really bad problem with it. I drank to get drunk only. I would binge drink only. I would drink things so that I could get fucked up as fast as possible. And I remember 2009, I was turning 20. I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in. And I was really only with her because I loved her family and her family loved me. Because I had such a shit family. I was clinging to whatever resemblance of family that I could get. And with that, lots of drinking, lots of socialite sort of activities, lots of parties and cheese boards and all that kind of shit. And I became obese. I became severely overweight, if not obese. And I wanted to go back to the gym. And it was around the same time that the boys and I, we had a drink and we said, enough is enough. And then that was a big point for me where I pride myself on how little I need to drink. I had 4 drinks on Saturday night going out with the guys and girls from jiu-jitsu, and that was enough for me. There was lots of pressure for me to do shots. There was lots of pressure for me to, get drunk with them and all that. However, I don't need to. I don't want to. I have no desire whatsoever. I've had 2 or 3 beers sitting in the fridge for 6 months. It just has no purpose for me anymore. And one of the main reasons is because of what I saw growing up. I saw everyone just getting pissed at the slightest celebration. And, I'd see my Pop 12 beers deep by lunchtime sort of thing. I don't want anything to do with that. I damn well don't want my kids to see that. Obesity, majority of my family is obese. Majority of my family has been struggling with their weight as long as I've known them. And that's on both sides, my mum and dad's side. They struggle. But they're also stress heads. They've also been through large amounts of abuse. And one thing that happens when you go through abuse is a lot of the time when you put on weight, it's a protection strategy from your unconscious to say, hey, look at me, look how unappealing I am, look how fragile I am. And it's a protection strategy, because the more of you there is, the less easy it is to get hurt. I know for myself, over the last couple of years where I've been losing, so far I've lost 20 kilos now, from where I was at my biggest, and going through that period of my life through 2018, 2019 and 20, that was where I was pretty fragile. I was doing a lot of things psychologically that I was uprooting a lot of presuppositions, looking at a lot of trauma, and, like I was going through a hell of a lot, and I stacked on the weight to be able to protect myself. I know this because I've done the work and I've gotten to the root cause and figured out why my unconscious wanted me to feel safe, why my unconscious wanted me to feel protected, and, have a little bit of an extra safety layer in, the blubber that I was carrying. Another one is morality. Morality is a thing that you should question. Where do your morals come from? Are they coming from the framework and the presuppositions of the Judeo-Christian worldview that we all lived and that we all died spiritually through? Or are you living by your own truth, your own morality? Are you living by morals that are handed down to you and installed into you? And have you questioned these? Because a lot of the time when it comes to your morals, your values and beliefs, like I said in a couple of episodes now, these things are largely unconscious. These things are the things that get installed into your mind when you are 0 to 7 years old. These are the things that happen to imprint onto you. Think of it like a sponge. A dry sponge goes into the dirty sink water after you've just finished doing the dishes, and it absorbs everything inside of it. So any morals, values and beliefs, they're going to be absorbed straight into it like dirty dishwater. And if you don't wring that thing out and re-look at it, go through, figure out what your values, beliefs and morals are, you are living by unconscious presuppositions, things that were presupposed before you could think, before your consciousness came into reality and snapped in and said, oh shit, I'm here, I'm a being. I remember having that vividly when I was about 10 years old. All of a sudden I snapped to and I was like, what the fuck is this? If you haven't questioned anything since then, that could be something that you could be looking at to be a cycle breaker in. If you have terrible values, beliefs, limiting beliefs as well, and morals, could be something for you to look at. When it came to my values and beliefs and limiting beliefs and morals and stuff like that, like God, I've been doing so much work around that myself, because there was just things that didn't make sense. I was taught things from my dad, taught things from mum and any authority figure in my life that were in that imprint phase that I had to go through with a fine-tooth comb, especially around money. Like I spoke about this a couple of episodes ago, talking about the mindset of the middle class being, money doesn't grow on trees, money's hard to come by, you got to work hard for money. This is just money beliefs. So I had to go through that with a fine-tooth comb and see if it was actually serving me or not. And if it's not serving you, reinstall a different belief. Reinstall a different value system. You can't actually make your own value system because everything comes from the environment around you, but you can do your best to be able to try and make sure that your focus is on the things that matter to you. You can actually increase things into a hierarchy of value and move them up a ladder by doing an unconscious, conscious binding process. Like if you've ever done NLP or worked with someone who's done NLP before, there's actually a process inside of there where you can learn to be able to change your values. You can't ever really change the top value, the number one value. However, you can change everything else from 2 through to 5 when it comes to the most important to least important. If you don't know how to do that, I strongly suggest NLP. Search this in YouTube or Google, NLP values elicitation and change. Then go through and have a look at that. It's a really good process and it happens really, really quickly. You can install it just like that. Then communication, probably one of the biggest ones in line with relationships in my life. Communication and being an effective communicator is one of the most important things to me, and it should be one of the most important things to everyone out there. The noises that we make from our face are either accepted, understood, or they're rejected, or they're confusing. When it comes to making the noises out of our face, it's all about how it's received from the other person. So if you're not feeling understood, it's because you haven't delivered it properly to the other person in an effective, brief way that they can accept it, understand it, and then return it to you. If you're not being understood in your relationships, at work, it's because you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to make noises coming out of your face that is getting across your points of view, because maybe you haven't thought about them enough. Maybe you haven't gotten them down crystal clear, or maybe they're too high abstraction. Or perhaps you're actually reciting something that you haven't thought about at all, and it's something that you heard someone else say. There is so much of that going on in the world and in people's families. my family used to have these weird sayings that I never really understood. You know, like my pop, he gave me this great saying, and it stuck true to me ever since. However, I started questioning it, wondering where it came from. And honestly, to me, it sounds like something that was like Industrial Revolution time frame, where, you know, a good factory worker, I'll start that again, where a good factory worker showed up to work 5 minutes early. And the saying was, if you're on time, you're late. If you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. And I kept that with me pretty neurotically whenever it came to appointments, where I'd be rocking up at anything 10 minutes early. I'd rock up to a friend's place, say we had dinner at 5 p.m. or something like that, or party starting at 5 p.m. I'd rock up at 1:45. I'd rock up at 10 to and just sit out there around the corner waiting until it was actually time to rock up. And I'd always, majority of the time, be the first person to be there. And it was because of that saying. Think about how many sayings that you guys have that are actually limiting beliefs. Like around, you know, that time one that I gave, for instance, or like a couple of episodes where I spoke about the old Hungarian thinking and limiting beliefs that my dad used to give us, where if we sneezed in winter, he'd yell out from the other side of the house to go get a jumper. Things like that. Things that are sitting in your unconscious that are communicating to you or communicating with other people that don't make any sense. Become an effective communicator so you can generalize, rationalize, distort, delete all of the things internally, like we spoke about many episodes ago. And then understand it at a simple way, a way you could describe it to a 5-year-old. So when you can articulate it in your mind in a way that is so simple, and a way that you could deliver it as if you were telling it to a 5-year-old, so they can comprehend it, so they can understand it and take action on it, that's the way that you need to be able to be an effective communicator. If you're using all of these complicated words that you don't really understand the meaning of, you're trying to intellectualize your speech. You're trying to create almost hyperbole with your speech and make you seem more intelligent, more important. I know that something that my old man used to do a lot was use these big fancy words because he was so insecure, because English was his second language. Actually, English was his third or fourth language, because being Hungarian, he learned German and Polish as well. So he would try to use these very fancy English words, and it would trip him up. And then when you tried to correct him on it, he would get angry over it because he was insecure. So make sure when it comes to communication that you are clear, concise, brief is really, really good. Make sure that you are articulating in a way that you could deliver it to a 5-year-old and they would understand you. Finances, another massive thing, especially if you're in the middle class, especially if you're a millennial like I am, and you've got a beautiful young family and you're working hard for the money, your partner's out working hard for the money, and you're struggling to get by because inflation is fucked and the finance economy is fucked and all the rest of the things. A lot of people are struggling, and it's because your financial blueprint, like we talk a lot about your self-image and your blueprint, is not up to scratch. You don't have the standards around it, and you haven't been taught properly from that imprint phase. A lot of these things in here, if you go back and did like timeline therapy or regressions or anything like that, and you went back to your childhood and figured out who taught you these things, who installed these beliefs and these values and all these sorts of things into your mind, into your subconscious, you would be able to see the decision that was made to accept that or to reject it, and then to be able to install something new. When it comes to finances, money doesn't grow on trees. Money's hard to come by. Only the those that are rich rip people off. All these sorts of things. If you're holding yourself back because you have shit values around money or shit beliefs around money, you're stopping yourself from having prosperity. You're stopping yourself from having generational wealth, if that's the way that you want to go about it. Your relationship to finances needs to be looked at with a fine-tooth comb, much like your values and beliefs, much like the anything that's unconscious that you haven't looked at that was installed into you as a child. When it comes to breaking cycles around finances, this is one of the hardest things that you will go through. And I know because I'm still breaking things down. No one in my family is well off. My uncle, he's probably the most well off, and that's only because he's been through a workers' compensation claim, hurt his back many, many years ago and got paid out for it. He's the most wealthy because of a workplace accident. Now, thankfully, he doesn't have kids, because that could be something that would be installed into their mind in the imprint phase, and that would send a bad message that, it's like when it comes to taxation in Australia, it's almost, there's a saying around it. Taxation is, sorry guys. Tax fraud is an Australian national sport. I've heard that from so many people, because that's one way that people get ahead in Australia, is they rort the system. You know, they rort Centrelink, they rort the tax system, they do work cover claims, and they're real dodgy bastards. Like, imagine if that's a part of your mindset. You're holding yourself back from prosperity because it's like, oh, I'm getting a Centrelink payment, I'm getting, you know, some welfare, I'm getting some of this payment, you know, I'm looking at getting a workers' compo claim because I slipped in Coles. All these sorts of things are things that people in Australia think of. If I don't know what it's like overseas for our US viewers, however, think about what pain is inside of your family, what cycle you're breaking because of your finances, because of what you got taught as a kid, because, you know, you might have had a parent with ADHD and they were terrible living week to week, every single week, with their finances, with their paycheck, and they were, you know, shiny object syndrome. They were buying things here willy-nilly because it was like, oh, shiny object, I want that thing, I'm going to get that thing. Fuck, now we've got no money for food, I've only got money for smokes and for my beers. Like, have a look at the cycles that of your finances, of your values, beliefs, obesity, all these sorts of things, just so that way you can be the one to stop it. So you can be the one to say, hey, the buck stops with me. I do not tolerate this anymore. And everything comes back to standards. Remember, the R.Y.S.E movement is all about raising your standards everywhere. So if your finances aren't up to scratch, raise your standards, create new non-negotiables around it, create a savings plan, create a investing plan, make sure you're buying yourself out of debt, make sure you can buy yourself into the future at least 3 months at a time with your savings account. You don't have any bad debt, you've got only good debt going on. You research and find out about the monetary system and see how fucking flawed it is. You research what happened to the gold standard and all these sorts of things. Become well-versed, become educated on it. There's 2 things when it comes to raising your standards that you want to look for. You want to become competent, and you want to become confident so that you can deliver it and understand it in a way that you can communicate it to a 5-year-old. So when you're learning about the monetary system, and you're learning about finances, investing, crypto, gold, silver, ETFs, you know, index funds, all these sorts of things, you can explain it really, really simply to someone that is 5 years old. Same thing with obesity. Become well versed. There's so much information out there. Oh my God, there's so much information out there about health, fitness, and wellness. A lot of contradicting misinformation out there as well. However, if you just learn the basics of human metabolism, learn that calories in versus calories out, move more, eat less, you know, be able to eat high volume foods, lean proteins, low fat, high carb, whatever suits your body and your lifestyle. When it comes to raising standards, all you need to do is become confident by educating yourself, internalizing it, making sure that you can understand it in a simple way that you can teach it to a 5-year-old. That's it. That's how basic and simple it is. Make sure you hold yourself to high standards by being disciplined, to have the non-negotiables, and understand all the things around breaking cycles is up to you. If you want to see the pain that happened inside of your family, the abuse, the violence, the addictions, the obesity, the rape, whatever it is that you guys have been through, take it on your shoulders. You are strong enough, and this is going to give you so much meaning and purpose inside your life to make sure you know exactly where you're aiming for with your North Star. It is really fucking important work. I know how meaningful it is for me, and I know what it can do for you guys. So to save me from having to edit this video again and this podcast again, I'm going to end it here because I'm still coming off the end of this bloody influenza A that's going around Australia at the moment. Until next time, guys, much love, take care, and I hope you're well. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and much love.